We're going to jump right into some breaking news coming out of Philadelphia. You may have heard about the Amtrak train that was headed to New York. It derailed in Philadelphia. At least 5 people are presently dead. Breaking news coming out of Philadelphia from our CBS affiliates up in New York. From New York CBS Local, an Amtrak train that was heading to New York City derailed in Philadelphia late Tuesday, leaving at least 5 people dead and 140 more injured. Northeast Regional Train 188 left South Union Station in Washington, D.C. at around 7 o'clock p.m. And that's our time, by the way, because in Philly they are on Eastern time, as are we, and was supposed to leave Penn Station at 10:34 p.m. Tuesday. But the train derailed at around 9:30 p.m. for unknown reasons and crashed in the Port Richmond section of Philadelphia. A 4-alarm response was raised by the Philadelphia Fire Department, which also declared a level 3 mass casualty incident. Now, casualty, keep in mind, does not mean death. Casualty could be injury as well. So a casualty, just as an example, if we're talking about warfare, a casualty could be just a person who's been injured. So we could be talking about broken bones, what have you, but that's not necessarily death. So mass casualty incident just means mass incapacitation, potentially. So you have to keep that in mind. You have to understand the wording of these things, because a lot of the time it is a little bit misleading how they'll word things. They'll say that it's a mass casualty incident, and you think, oh my gosh, all these people are dead. That's not always the case. Now, of course, it is a tragedy. 5 people have passed away in this particular incident. But you have to keep in mind that casualty does not equate to deceased. So as of Wednesday morning, this morning, 140 people have been transferred to area hospitals, and 6 people were in critical condition. Some of the walking wounded were taken from the scene to area hospitals on SEPTA buses. KYW-TV in Philly is reporting. So at least 10 people were taken to Temple University Hospital in Philadelphia, according to KYW as well. So the injured have been taken to hospitals. Anyone who might have a family member or a loved one up in Philadelphia who was on that train can call 800-523-9101, because I know a lot of us have family up north. So that number is 800-523-9101. If you might have had a family member or a loved one who's on that train, you can call that number. Again, that's 800-523-9101 for any information on passengers or victims involved in that particular wreck. They've done an index of all the people who are on that train. They've checked driver's licenses and such, and so they can give you any information on the people who are on board that train. Again, that's 800-523-9101 for information on passengers or victims who may have been on that train. So if you have any information that you want to give, or you want to gather any information about someone who you think may have been on that train, you can give them a call if you're unable to contact who you think may have been on that train. So that's a train derailment in Philadelphia. That's still sort of a breaking news situation that's going on over there right now. We're not sure as to the reason for the train derailment. Now, that's sort of a touchy subject as it is now. We don't know the reason for the train derailment, and that is a bit of a problem. You see, the reason for that is trains are, as I learned today, not that hard to derail. Now, you have to keep that in mind, because if a train's not that hard to derail, then this could be either an accident or it could be kids messing around, right? Because as I learned today, it's not that hard to just switch the tracks. So, there's switches around, you pull the lever and it changes the direction that the train will be going on the track. Now, you can get it stuck in an in-between position as well if you're particularly crafty. So this could be just an example of kids playing around and cause something that they had no intention of causing, or it could be a mechanical accident, mechanical failure, because tech glitches do happen. Trust me, technological glitches definitely do happen. I can tell you with tons and tons of experience that technological accidents happen all the time that are completely outside the control of any human. So you have to keep that in mind as well, because I know there's going to be a lot of sensationalism about this story, and I hate sensationalism. So something that you have to keep in mind is that this could be a complete accident, and this could be something that was partially intentional, but the person who's involved didn't know the scope of what was going to happen, or it could be something that was intentional. So there's those 3 options, and because we don't know what it was, it's really not anyone's place to claim that it was a particular item. It was definitely an intentional sabotage. We don't know. So it's not anyone's place at this point to say that. And there's no sense in making this a political issue either, because that's just nonsensical. A lot of people like to do that. They like to make a political issue out of something that was totally not political. And that also drives me crazy because we're talking about people who have been injured, some of them very badly, and we're talking about people who have passed away, and turning that into a political point is lowbrow. I'll put it that way. It's rather lowbrow. Now, that's to be expected from politicians because they're very lowbrow people anyway, but it's particularly lowbrow when somebody on Twitter, for example, will say that this, I saw on Twitter today, I'm not going to say, people on Twitter are the worst people ever, because I've seen very funny people on Twitter, I've seen very, very loving, very caring people on Twitter, but this particular guy kind of annoyed me. With one of the tweets he said, it was, this is what happens when you elect a GOP. It's a train wreck. And he posted a picture of the Amtrak derailment. That's kind of crossing the line. I mean, I'm a very thick-skinned person when it comes to jokes, right? I mean, make a joke about anything. You can make a joke about whatever you want. But when it comes to, people actually died and you're turning that into a political thing, that's really low. That's very, very low to do something like that. And it just drives me crazy that people think that that's just fine, and I'm not going to say that they shouldn't do that. Well, I'm going to say they shouldn't do that, but I'm not going to say that they should be stopped from doing that. If you understand what I mean, because there's a very, very definite difference between I don't like what they did and they should be stopped from doing that. If that makes any sense. It's kind of like the old Voltaire line, I don't agree with what you said, but I would give my life to defend what you said. You're right to say it. You see what I'm saying? So it's a very definite difference. You absolutely have the freedom to say what you said, but I don't have to like it, is the point. Obviously you're not going to face any ramifications from everybody, but I don't like it, is what I'm saying. So it's a very difficult situation. So turning something like that into a political point is ridiculous. So the feds just recently have dropped a case in which the cops apparently nailed a webcam to a utility pole in order to spy on a house. A very low-tech solution. Now, you might not think that a webcam is a low-tech solution, but in this case, it definitely was, because nailing a webcam to a telephone pole is not my idea of high-tech. That's very late 90s in my estimation of things. There's many different ways to do this, and nailing a webcam to a telephone pole seems very, very low-tech, very outdated. Well, this is Digital Drive. I'm your host, Russell. The show, we talk about technology and quite a bit more. And you can go to AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. We are everywhere. You can listen live on Hot News Talk Radio at hotnewstalkradio.com. You can download the TuneIn Radio app and search for Hot News Talk Radio. Hot News Talk Radio is on Twitter, where you report the world of science. That's AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. And you can save half off now. Go to hotnewstalkradio.com and click on the half off link for some great deals. Hot News Talk Radio saves you money. That's AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. And actually, it's kind of funny that somebody on Facebook, a good friend of mine from Canada, was listening over the internet. And thank you, by the way, John, if you're listening now. I do appreciate you listening. It actually really does mean a lot that people who are my friends will actually, take time another day to listen to my show. And that does mean a lot. So thank you. But it's funny, he pointed out, what's the name of your station again? Because I pump it a lot, Hot News Talk Radio. I say it like in my sleep, I'll leap out of bed and say Hot News Talk Radio. It's my reflexive thing. I get punched in the stomach and I go, ugh, Hot News Talk Radio. It's just what you do. Maybe you have to work in radio to understand. And I'm not by any means a grizzled veteran of radio, but I think it is sort of a radio person thing where we're just so used to pumping the name of the station just repeatedly. So it's just Hot News Talk Radio, Hot News Talk Radio, Hot News Talk Radio. You just get so used to it. And the reason for this is I'm trying to brainwash you. I want you to go to hotnewstalkradio.com very badly. So please go to hotnewstalkradio.com and check out all the great deals that we have on Hot News Talk Radio, and play into my hand as my broad brainwashing operation continues on. It soldiers on. You will go to hotnewstalkradio.com and you will like it. So go to hotnewstalkradio.com and you can check out all the great deals that we have on hotnewstalkradio.com. That's, of course, Hot News Talk Radio. Mm-hmm. The feds have dropped a case in which cops nailed a webcam to a utility pole to spy on a house. The Justice Department on Tuesday, according to Ars Technica, withdrew its appeal of a lower court's December ruling, said that it was illegal for police to attach a webcam to a utility pole and spy on a suspected drug dealer's house in rural Washington state for 6 weeks. The government did not comment on its decision to drop the appeal in a brief filing to the 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals. The video camera operated 24 hours a day. Footage was synced to the computer of a Kennewick Police Department detective who could operate the camera from afar via its pan and zoom capabilities. So a pan and zoom webcam is, again, that's not a high-tech thing. In fact, there was a really big controversy. Well, I won't say really big. There was a bit of a controversy on the internet not too long ago, maybe 2, 3 years, which is actually a very long time in computer years. Leo Laporte was talking about that, by the way. Leo Laporte is a show you should definitely listen to on Saturdays. I love listening to Leo Laporte, man. That guy knows his stuff. He used to be on Tech TV back in the day. And Tech TV was the precursor to G4. G4 is vastly inferior to Tech TV. Tech TV was a really funny and really informative TV station from back in the day, like late 90s, early 2000s. There's Chris Pirillo, who was on there, who has his own web show nowadays, and it's actually really good. And Leo Laporte was one of the people who was on Tech TV. And I think he was on Screensavers, I'm wanting to say. I have a bunch of them. Let's say I acquired them on my computer, and sometimes I used to watch them when I was younger because I was into old tech stuff back then when I was like 10 years old. And I definitely didn't torrent them. I'll put it that way. So Leo Laporte's very, very informative. You can listen to him on weekends, I should say, here on Hot News Talk Radio on Saturday. Leo Laporte show is very, very good. Well, he was talking about this, and I'm going to talk about it too because it plays in with this. Pan and zoom webcam is not a new, innovative thing. It's not like some super duper law enforcement strategy for gathering information. It's really not. You can actually get access to pan and zoom webcams super easily, and that's the freaky thing. Okay, there is a certain line that you can put into Google. No joke. I have a computer right in front of me here because we're high tech here at Hot News Talk Radio. All you have to do is just type in, web enabled webcam, and you can just do a Google search. And there's particular Google search parameters that you put in. It's a web enabled webcam, and it's just this particular string that you type into Google, you copy paste into Google, and there's all these different webcams that pop up with web interfaces, and you can click on them and you can watch these webcams. Now, a lot of them are actually security cameras. Some of them are audio enabled, so you can talk into your microphone and they'll hear what you're saying over the other end. So this is a very, very freaky thing for anybody. You'd think that this is a terrible, terrible thing. Well, it's super easy. In fact, there's a website called Shodan, which I assume is named after the AI from System Shock, I think. So ShodanHQ.com, you can use that without any sort of login, and you can search for these different webcams and click on them, and you can actually view different webcams. Webcam XP is one. You type that into Shodan, the search engine, it pulls up links for hundreds, sometimes thousands of different web-enabled webcams all over the world. And in this particular article I'm reading, they give an example from a rooftop in Norway of a bird's nest. And there's some from another one is a small shop in South Korea. So there's all sorts of different uses for these web-enabled webcams. Now, this brings up another problem, is if the police didn't properly secure this webcam, that means anyone could have been spying on this guy, not just the police. Now, it's bad enough that the police are spying on this guy's house simply because he's a suspected drug dealer, which doesn't mean anything. What does it take to be a suspected drug dealer? Is the question. Now, this doesn't mean you're a person of interest in an investigation. It means you're a suspected drug dealer, meaning that they don't really have enough evidence to make an arrest, but they suspect you may or may not be working as a drug dealer. So what they do is they suspect that you're a drug dealer, so they follow you around and try to get evidence that you actually are one, and that's it. So the video camera operated 24 hours a day. Footage was synced to the computer of a Kennewick Police Department detective who could operate the camera from afar via pan and zoom capabilities, I should say, which is, again, not difficult. The government told a federal judge last year, according to Ars Technica, that it had the right to deploy the webcam without a court warrant because the device was on the public's right-of-way and was akin to a cop's observations from the street. The judge in the case, U.S. District Judge Edward Shea, said the Fourth Amendment required that the police needed a warrant to spy on defendant Lionel Vargas. Now, there are two interesting arguments at play here. On the one hand, a cop can be walking on the street and he can look at your house. Just as, this is an unavoidable thing for a lot of people. I'll give you an example. I was walking down the street downtown Chattanooga last night with a group of friends. We were filming a bunch of videos. In case you don't know, I do videos online, comedy videos and stuff, and we film them downtown sometimes. And we were downtown filming. And we were just, downtown filming, and I'm walking down the street and I see, people making out in Coolidge Park. You see these things. And I saw what I'm pretty sure was a drug deal going down. You observe these things if you're walking downtown. So if a cop, a beat cop is walking down the street and he sees something illegal happening, obviously he's made that observation and that's grounds for an arrest or questioning. So that's grounds for that and that's legal. That's fine. But if we're talking about standing on the side of the street, standing on a public right of way, in this case, a sidewalk, and just intently, purposefully staring into a guy's window, is that a breach of privacy? Any more than if I had a telescope in my house and I'm looking into your house, is that a breach of your privacy? Despite the fact that physically I'm standing in my own private property, but I have a telescope and I'm looking through your window, where you're changing clothes in your bedroom, is that a breach of your privacy? I would argue yes. And you would probably agree that if I'm spying on you through a telescope looking into your bedroom window while you're changing your clothes, you probably agree that's a breach of your privacy. So if the police do the same thing, this time with a webcam spying on somebody's house, you would probably agree that that's a breach of privacy and thus need special permission from a judge to give a warrant to do such a thing. That's the purpose of a warrant. Now, the Fourth Amendment is pretty clear about this, actually. The Fourth Amendment of the United States Constitution actually clearly states, and I have it right in front of me, because we are very well versed on the Constitution here at Hot News Talk Radio. We're very firm believers in the Constitution. The Fourth Amendment, search and seizure. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. So this means that his affidavit, if you will, his warrant, his oath, I suppose, oath or affirmation, which in this case would be an affidavit, written statement, sworn statement given to a judge saying that they need this information, would be, we need to look at his house and we need to get information on him because we believe that he's a drug dealer. We don't have, I guess he would have to say he has probable cause. I don't know what he would provide for probable cause. And in order to complete our investigation, he says to the judge, we have to mount a webcam on a utility pole to look at his house 24/7. And the judge would then have to sign off on that with a warrant, and then it's legal. And even then, if the warrant violates the Fourth Amendment in some way, making it unreasonable, then it's out the window. Your court case is out the window. If you've done something illegal in order to obtain that information, it goes out the window. It's no longer admissible in court. So information obtained illegally is not admissible in court. So this has to be thrown out. So this kills their case. Now, this person might be a bad guy. This person might be doing something wrong. But if they obtain information about that wrongdoing illegally, then it doesn't really matter. So there's, on the one hand, they shouldn't violate his rights. Now, on the other hand, if he truly is doing something unjust, worthy of punishment legally, then you have to obtain that information legally, or else that information suddenly gets thrown out. So for proper law enforcement, for a proper peace officer to properly go about his job, he must follow the law, as well as we should. We have to follow the law, and so should peace officers. Now, the idea of a peace officer is sort of an antiquated, outdated one nowadays, because now we have law enforcement officers, or LEOs. LEOs is often what it's shortened to. And these people are often, they think of themselves as being somehow above the law, and sometimes courts will even uphold that. And sometimes people will even uphold that idea that law enforcement officers are somehow above the law. Well, it's been determined by U.S. District Judge Edward Shea that the Fourth Amendment required the police to get a warrant in order to spy on him with this particular webcam, which they mounted on a utility pole looking at his house. He says the American people have a reasonable expectation of privacy in the activities occurring in and around the front yard of their homes, particularly when the home is located in a very rural, isolated setting, the judge ruled. When the authorities raided Vargas's residence in 2013, the camera was panned away from the house on a sagebrush. So we're pleased that the DOJ realized it was unwise to pursue the appeal, said Hani Fakhouri, an attorney on the case with the Electronic Frontier Foundation, in an email to Ars Technica, saying, prolonged warrantless video surveillance of the exterior of a person's home violates the Fourth Amendment, as the district court correctly found. So you have to keep in mind that not every investigation done by the police is a wrong one or an unjust one or an unlawful one. But if an unjust or unlawful investigation does take place, that has to be called into question. You have to call them out on that. And so this is why we talk about these things here on Digital Drive, because the people need to know about these things, and the police need to know that it is unlawful for them to search somebody's house, effects, persons, papers, whatever, without a proper warrant, which is then obtained via affirmation of probable cause. You can't just go searching through somebody's house. You can't just go looking at them with a telescope without a warrant. It doesn't work that way. And the warrant has to be very specific about what you're searching for. You can't just say, I want to search his house because I think he might have done something illegal. That's not probable cause. That's just seeing, I think he may have done something illegal and not specifying what that particular illegal thing is. That's not proper. That's not right. It's not legal.
This is a mob mode. This is the mob mode. What kind of fool do you think I am? You think I know nothing of my...
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240. Hi, this is your computer speaking. I don't feel so well. It's like I've come down with a bug, and I'm getting slower.
Affordable Computers. We fix sick computers. Your hometown guys at Affordable Computers will repair your PC in half the time of the big boys at an affordable price. No tricks, no gimmicks, no computer speak technobabble. Just good, quick, and courteous affordable service and repairs. Want to affordably supercharge your PC? Affordable Computers on Highway 58. Affordable Computers hand builds all desktops in-house. If you're looking for a better-than-new refurb laptop, $150 will get you a Dell or another name brand at Affordable Computers. Affordable Computers, Highway 58, between Arby's and Taco Bell. Also Fort O, Battlefield Parkway, near Holcomb's. Affordable Computers, we service what we sell. Call 499-1975. That's 499-1975.
Wow, this is amazing. I'm feeling great. Supercharged.
Do you feel better outside your home or business than in? Indoor air quality is important. Mildew, mold, smoke, water, and rodent damage are prime causes of poor indoor air quality. Ducts, Indoor Air Professionals, better known as Duct Busters, cleans HVAC systems using 127 definable Duct Busters steps. Let Mark Thompson address the indoor air quality at your business to help reduce employee illnesses. Prevent fires by cleaning your dryer vents. Mark and his parents, Dick and Joan Thompson, have been building our local economy and helping local people with HVAC systems 16 years. Ducts, Indoor Air Professionals. Call 877.
Fox News Radio, I'm Pat O'Neill. Investigators say the black box of the train that derailed in Philadelphia last night has been found and hope it will shed light on why the Amtrak train went off the rails, leaving 6 dead, some 200 injured. Robert Sumwalt of the NTSB.
The Federal Railroad Administration will be a part of our investigation. We will work very closely with them. We will work closely with Amtrak, as well as the city of Philadelphia.
The Naval Academy says one of those killed was a midshipman on leave and en route home. Toyota recalling 5 million vehicles, more than 600,000 in the U.S. because of an airbag issue.
The airbags are believed to not inflate on time or improperly during a crash. These airbags are made by Japan's Takata Corporation, which had already been shown to be faulty on numerous other Toyota cars.
Fox Radio's Evan Brown. Nissan also recalling about 300,000 North American vehicles for a similar problem. Fox News, we report, you decide.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
You love your hometown. Are you interested in free markets, in local economy? Do you hope that Chattanooga can survive the next meltdown, the next chain of disasters in the national economy? What's the best way to live out the ideals of self-government and self-determination? Join me, David Toulis, weekdays 1 to 3.
Hot News Talk 1240.
Love your neighbor, buy local.
Hot News Talk 1240.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
We're covering the train derailment that's just occurred last night, late Tuesday. Trying to get more information about the Amtrak train derailment. It was a train from Philadelphia to New York, and it derailed in Philadelphia. It was headed to New York City. It derailed in Philadelphia late Tuesday, leaving at least 5 people dead and 140 more injured. Northeast Regional Train left 188 people, where 188 people left Union Station in Washington, D.C. around 7 o'clock p.m., and was supposed to arrive at Penn Station at 10:34 p.m. Tuesday. But the train derailed around 9:30 p.m. for unknown reasons and then crashed into the Port Richmond section of Philadelphia. A 4-alarm response was raised by the Philadelphia Fire Department, which also declared a level 3 mass casualty incident, saying it's an absolute disastrous mess. I've never seen anything like this in my life, and most personnel will say that as well, says Philadelphia Mayor Michael Nutter. As of Wednesday morning, 140 people were transported to area hospitals, and 6 people were in critical condition. Some of the walking wounded were taken from the scene to an area hospital in SEPTA buses, according to KYW-TV. So at least 10 people were taken to Temple University Hospital in Philadelphia. Patients were also taken to Hahnemann University Hospital and Area Health Torresdale and Area Health Frankfurt Hospital in Philadelphia, as well as several other hospitals, KYW reported. The 2 hospitals received so many patients that they actually had to close. Anyone who had a family member or loved one on that train can call 800-523-9101. That's 800-523-9101 for information on passengers or victims. If you think that you may know somebody who's on one of those trains, you can call 800-523-9101 for information on that train derailment. It's a very odd situation that's happening. You have to keep in mind that when a train derails like this, it's a lot of things are called into question. Now, the NTSB, National Transportation Safety Board, is on the case immediately after something like this happens. Remember the small plane crash that happened in Atlanta, where the NTSB was immediately on the case just minutes after it occurred. Same thing is happening with this train derailment, where we don't know the exact cause of it. We don't know if this was intentional. We don't know if this is mechanical failure. We don't know if accident, what have you. We don't know. So that's why the NTSB is on the case right now. They're on the case right now in order to determine what caused this train derailment. Now, a technical glitch does happen. Technical glitches happen. We all know this. So if something like this happens due to technical error, the manufacturer is going to be called into question. Investigations will go forward, and that'll basically be the end of it. Now, if it was intentional, this is we're talking about multiple murder charges. We're talking about neglect. We're talking about criminal mischief. All sorts of different charges could be pressed against the person in mind. Also, wrongful death lawsuits and all sorts of other things. Now, if it's a fault with Amtrak itself, there's a lot that could be called into question as well. Amtrak could be called for wrongful death lawsuits. All sorts of different things could happen with that as well. We don't know if that's the case, though. We don't know what the cause of the derailment is. Now, different people may speculate. Different people may try to turn this into a political issue. We all know that's nonsensical, right? Trying to say that this is a political issue, that's ridiculous. It's not a political issue at this point, unless there's some sort of weird situation involved where some politician decided to go with the lowest bidder because that lowest bidder was his brother's cousin. We don't know. We don't know what the particular cause of this particular accident was. So speculation is out of line, and we're not going to do that. Here on Hot News Talk Radio, speculation is not something that I like to go for. I am the news director here at Hot News Talk Radio, and as news director, I do not allow any speculation. When it comes down to speculation, when we're talking about a national tragedy, an event, any sort of event like this, I don't allow any sort of speculation when it comes to a definite thing. I mean, we can say that it could have been this or that, and that's fine. Putting forward possibilities is fine, but talking about one over another is not worth your time. I'm not going to waste your time saying that this could have been an act of terror. This could have been, we don't know. The fact of the matter is right now, this could be an accident. This could be a mechanical problem. This could be intentional. This could be an accident that was caused by a kid. It's easy to derail a train. It's actually, I learned today, surprisingly easy to derail a train. So you have to keep that in mind, where there's switches sometimes are just right out in the open. You can pull a switch and the train track changes direction. It's actually surprisingly easy. So you have to keep that in mind. This could be a pure accident. This could be kids messing around. We don't know. And we're not going to speculate on one point over another. These are just things which could have happened that are definite possibilities. I'm not going to favor one over another. We simply do not know what caused the train derailment. Until the NTSB comes out with a statement, I'm not going to say what it was because we don't know. Speculation at this point is ridiculous. Now, something that I came across just as a news director, this drove me crazy. As a reporter on the radio, this drove me crazy, was back when, you might remember the plane that crashed in the Alps. On the France side, there was that plane, the Germanwings plane. You might remember that crashed, and it turned out after an investigation, it turned out to be a suicidal pilot. Now, immediately after this happened, people were saying it might have been terror, it might have been terror, it might have been terrorism. We don't know that. We didn't know that at the time, and I was very frustrated with a lot of the different reporters who were constantly talking about how this might be an act of terrorism. Just because several plane accidents have happened, or several plane incidents have happened because of an act of terror, does not make every single plane incident an act of terror. I would not count that as an act of terror. I would count that as murder-suicide, if anything. So speculating about whether or not this is going to be an act of terror, that's totally out of line, and there's no way to know. And this causes undue alarm, and it's really not worth anybody's time to do that. So it's just drives me crazy. If I had reporters under me, I would sternly chastise them for any sort of speculation regarding that, because it's really not worth anybody's time. You can present facts and you can present possibilities to make people think about, this could be this could be this. When you think about this objectively, objective reporting is absolutely fine, but constantly op-edding about how this could have been an act of terror, we don't know, that's just nonsensical, and I hate it so much when people do that. So on that note, this is Hot News Talk Radio, AM 1240. Hot News Talk Radio is everywhere. Listen live to Hot News Talk Radio at hotnewstalkradio.com, or download the TuneIn Radio app and search for Hot News Talk Radio. Hot News Talk Radio is on Twitter, where you report the world of science. That's AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio. You can save half off now. Go to hotnewstalkradio.com. Click on the half off link for great deals. Hot News Talk Radio saves you money. That's AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio. And AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. Check out the all-new Hot News Talk Radio website featuring our links to useful websites. Go to hotnewstalkradio.com, and that is hotnewstalkradio.com. So keep those websites in mind. Bookmark Hot News Talk Radio, because we are here for you. We are the Hamilton County radio station. We're very local. I don't like the whole talking about national issues all the time. It's boring. National issues become very boring when it comes right down to it. So we try to stay as local as possible here on Hot News Talk Radio. When we do talk about national things, I like to bring it down to our level. Not to say that national issues are higher up than us, but it doesn't affect us on the same plane. It's not that it's higher up or lower down. It's just not even the same plane. So I like to try to bring that into our sphere and try to make it so that it does affect us in some way, right? Like, we have to understand why these national issues affect us if they do. If it's a problem of, say, the feds lying, that affects everybody, because it means that people whose tax dollars go towards these federal programs, they've lied to us about them. So we need to know about that. We need to know where our money goes. It's a very important issue. Now, this is not an issue of national intrigue or national clandestine operations. That's not what this is. This is something really cool, though, that I'm very excited about. It's called Chip. It's a $9 computer. Yeah, $9. You could actually go out and buy the thing. So Chip could be the next big little thing, according to Extreme Tech. It's a $9 your own peripherals is second nature. Debian Linux for me is like, oh, okay, fine, I can use that. I use Ubuntu on my work computer right here at the station every day. So Ubuntu is based upon Debian. So it's basically Debian with a bunch of extra stuff added on. So having it be a Debian-based Linux machine is just like, okay, fine. I can use my right hand. I can use this machine, right? So this is nothing new for me. The hardware design is open hardware, meaning you can study and learn how it works, and you can modify the design if you want to fabricate your own tiny computer. So you can learn about the design. You can learn how to make your own little computer. With nearly a month of backing left, it's nearly $1 million in Kickstarter funding, which far exceeds its target goal of $50,000. Although it's somewhat similar to the very successful $35 Raspberry Pi computer, Chip has just enough differences to make it interesting beyond its ultra-low price. For example, it does have Wi-Fi and Bluetooth built in. That means that you can connect it to the internet as well as a keyboard and mouse without using any cables. Although Bluetooth keyboards and mice are generally more expensive than the wired models, you can have, say, a wireless media center, what have you. It's not that hard to set this up. Chip has, again, there's 4 gigabytes of NAND flash storage built in. Raspberry Pi, get high on raspberries. Raspberry Pi, on the other hand, requires you to add an SD card. Well, that's not a big deal because SD cards are cheap nowadays, but that's still extra money they have to spend. It does mean that Chip has limited 4 gigabytes of storage, so it only provides support for a composite video display, but borrowing a page from Arduino's playbook, there are options for VGA, HDMI shields that plug in on top of the device for higher res video output. The option may draw the most interest is the Pocket Chip case that creates a battery-powered portable unit based on chip that includes a 4.3-inch 470 by 272 resistive color touch screen, a 3,000 milliamp hour battery, and a little tiny QWERTY keyboard that is somewhat reminiscent of the classic BlackBerry phones. You remember the Blackberries, which were, in my view, some of the first smartphones ever. You pretty much have it down how these keyboards work for the chip computer. So very, very excited about the chip computer. I can't wait for it to come out. I'm probably going to buy 2 or 3 of them and have them around the station just to use, because you never know when you need a little computer. You just never know. WinterTech A13 based R8 is the processor that it uses. It's a 1 gigahertz single core processor, ARM Cortex A8, designed primarily for use in low-priced Android tablets. So you basically have a tablet computer that is also sort of disconnected. You have a tablet computer that can connect via HDMI and do all sorts of cool things, basically, is what you have. It has 512 megs of RAM, as well as the built-in 4 gig flash storage that was mentioned before. By comparison, the Raspberry Pi 2 has 1 gig of RAM and can use SD cards, which are larger than 4 gigs for storage, but it costs $35. So for about a third of the price, a little less than a third of the price, you can buy a computer that has similar capabilities, but not quite as many. So if you can't wait for a year to buy the thing, because you have to wait a year for it to be produced, you can buy a Raspberry Pi 2 right now and then buy a chip later on. Total cost for both of them is $44, so you really can't go wrong with that. You can't get too excited about the project yet because the projected ship date and its add-ons is May of next year, so about a year from now. And the company website illustrates plenty of uses for it, including learning to program, playing old DOS games, making music, things you can also admittedly do with the Raspberry Pi already. That said, an alpha model of the chip for developers, I should say, has an estimated ship date of September of this year. So I'm very excited about the chip. Small computers are, I'm thinking, the way. You know, small computers are probably going to be picking up steam as time goes by. Now, we already have small computers in the sense that I'm holding right now a smartphone in my hand. You can listen to us on the radio on a smartphone. Get the TuneIn Radio app and search for Hot News Talk Radio. You can listen to us that way. So smartphones are taking over in the computer world. There are some people nowadays who don't even have a desktop. They have a laptop, and they have a laptop and they have a smartphone, and that's it. That's a lot of people. Now, I use a desktop at my house. I use a desktop, I use a half top is actually what they call it at work here, which is a desktop that sort of doubles as a laptop because it's a desktop, or rather it's a laptop that I have plugged into an external monitor, keyboard, and mouse, and it basically acts like a desktop because the screen is broken. So I sort of Frankensteined it into my own desktop computer that I use for audio editing and video streaming and that sort of thing. So that's my usage for it. But I do have a desktop in my house. Now, a lot of people don't nowadays, and that's kind of a weird phenomenon that we're seeing here, where people will have smartphones and laptops, very portable, but they don't have desktops. So that means that people are looking towards portability and they're looking to small scale, which is also interesting because people are buying bigger and bigger phones. So they want portability, but they want a big screen so they can watch Netflix and such, right? So people want all-in-one devices. They want to do everything on one thing. Remember back in the 80s and 90s when it was all about getting more gadgets? Well, now it's about getting more into one gadget. It's kind of a weird shift that we have where, remember back in the 80s and 90s, people wanted a Walkman, they wanted a CD man, they wanted a radio, they wanted a video, a little portable TV, they wanted a TV in and of itself, on their wall. They wanted MP3 players later on as separate devices. We wanted all sorts of just little gadgets that we don't even think about nowadays because it's all right there in the smartphone. So there's sort of been a technology shift where people are wanting portable devices more than anything. So it's interesting how that's working out. Portable devices are being more and more popular as time is going by. So what's my prediction for the future? Well, on the one hand, predicting the future is very dangerous and you probably shouldn't do it. But if I were forced to, if somebody held a gun to my hand to my head and forced me to give you a prediction for the future, this is what I would give you. Portable computers in the sense that we have smartphones that plug into desktop, configurations where the brain of the machine, so to speak, is your smartphone, which has a screen and everything, has audio outputs and everything, but there's a peripheral output that say on the bottom of the phone, like our USB ports, USB 3.0, of course, remember, it can stream video and everything very high speed. You plug that into sort of a dock, right? Like the iPhone had a dock. You plug it into this dock, and it gives you a larger screen, a keyboard and mouse and all that sort of thing. Maybe the screen is a touch screen, and that's your main computer. So a unified interface is probably what we're going to be looking at. Now, Apple being Apple is going to make everything proprietary and obnoxious. Windows being Windows is going to make everything semi-proprietary and somewhat obnoxious. And there's going to be the open source Linux, where it's going to be very open source, a little bit obnoxious, but also open source. So there's going to be tons of cool custom programs for it. So I'm very excited about the future of computing. Things are looking up when it comes to the future of computing. Well, Facebook has hired former FCC chairman to look over certain things. Facebook has hired former FCC chairman to spin Internet.org's harm to net neutrality. Now, harming net neutrality is not something that I'm very much against. I'm not a huge fan of net neutrality, not for the totalitarian reasons that people think of when I say I'm against net neutrality, because they say, you're against internet freedom, aren't you? That's not how it works, actually. When we're talking about net neutrality, we're fundamentally talking about more government control over the internet. That is a necessity for net neutrality to work properly. That's not what I want. I want a free market. Now, people don't understand sometimes what a free market means. A free market is a market that is without any sort of outside intervention from a state. So it's a market that's allowed to operate freely. And we have that, but we don't necessarily always have that out in the open. There's always going to be a free market, just like there was a free market in, say, the Soviet Union, even when there was somewhat just almost complete state control of commerce. Despite that, there was you hear about it, there was the black market for American blue jeans. There's a black market for Wrangler jeans, and people say, well, that wasn't really a free market because look at how marked up the price was. That was actual market value for those jeans, though. That's the funny thing. That was the real market value for those jeans because of the risk involved in importing them, because of the risk involved in selling them. That was market value. You have to keep that in mind when we're talking about black markets, is because of risk involved, because of all the different factors, you're actually paying the real market value for those items, whereas larger manufacturers can afford to take a risk and afford to take a loss, I should say, when selling that item. So you are paying real market value along with profits and such for the seller when you're paying for things on black market. You have to keep that in mind when we're talking about black markets. Now, the best way to negate the whole black market thing is to just make things legal, right? Just not enforce laws against the buying and selling of specific items, be it drugs or what have you, where you're creating a very dangerous climate. Or we're talking about, say, there's no longer a free open internet. Well, there's going to be a so-called sort of a black market internet. There's going to be what the media is going to call dark internet, black internet, clandestine internet. It's going to be called the deep internet, whatever, but it's going to be free. So if net neutrality is allowed to progress as the people who are the founders of net neutrality wanted to, there's going to be a no longer free internet, and there's going to be a controlled internet, and there's going to be a divide where there's going to be a free internet. And nobody wants that. We want things to be unified. We want things to be open. We want things to be easy. Convenience is at the heart of everyone's concerns when it comes to net neutrality, because people say it's not going to be convenient. You're going to have to pay more. You're going to be paying market value for the internet no matter what, unless you're buying government internet, in which case you're probably not actually paying anything for it. Well, as it faces criticism about its approach to net neutrality, Facebook has hired a former FCC chairman, Kevin Martin, to handle its policy on mobile and global access. Martin, who is a Republican, led the FCC from 2005 to 2009, and 2008 was involved in a major net neutrality fight as Comcast was caught throttling peer-to-peer internet traffic. Now, keep in mind, I don't want Comcast to throttle peer-to-peer internet traffic. I don't want that to happen. But I also definitely don't want the government to tell them not to do that. What should happen, of course, is that the customers who don't want this to happen speak up and say to Comcast, look, we want to use our peer-to-peer internet traffic, and we're going to move our business elsewhere if you don't unblock it. Now, that's the proper response. That's a free market response. But a controlled capitalism response would be, we want the government to fix our problems for us. Now, I really don't want that to happen, because you should be the broker between you and the company. Now, net neutrality, one of the big ideas between net neutrality, I actually wrote about this in an article for Chattanooga, which you can check out if you search for my name on chattanoogan.com. Great news resource, great website, because they carry me, and I'm cool. Read my article, but I'll give it to you for free anyway. The idea between net neutrality is net neutrality is essentially acting as a broker. The government acts as a broker between you and your provider. Now, you don't want that. Why don't you want that? because you want to have control over what you buy. You don't want the government to tell you this is okay to buy, this is okay to buy, this is not okay to buy. You don't want that. Government always messes things up, right? I mean, think about it. What has the state not messed up? Okay, healthcare is a mess, right? Healthcare is always a classic example, but healthcare is a mess. Now, there are solutions to that. There are free market solutions to the total mess that healthcare is. These solutions are walk-in clinics that accept cash and not insurance. Think about QuickSurge, one of our advertisers here on Hot News Talk Radio. He doesn't take insurance, but he does take cash. That's going to be the solution. It's a personal relationship with your doctor. That's local economy. That's free market. A not free market solution is this giant corporate government machine that is this new healthcare system that doesn't actually properly and adequately treat you and doesn't really properly and adequately serve you as a customer. Because a lot of people don't think about healthcare as a business, but it definitely is. Think about DePuy, think about Johnson & Johnson. These are business people who run these medical services. These are business people. If you bring in bureaucracy into this, it's just going to mess up the business. Healthcare is a business. It's a service that's provided to you. Now, it's a necessary business that's provided to you because you need healthcare, but it's a business nonetheless. Just like selling gas is a business. We need gasoline to get around and do our everyday business. If suddenly there's government control over the price of gasoline, which there actually is in some cases, then that creates higher prices, which we do not want. We don't want higher taxes on our gas because that makes our everyday lives harder. So it's very simple. You don't want the state involved in business because that creates a socialistic economy, that creates a non-free market. We want free market because a free market is the best. There's really not much of any way around it. Now, there are people who are, for some reason, have very much animosity towards people who are for a free market. And I don't really understand that. People say that a free market is a very free market is a very cold, uncaring system, is what a lot of people will say. People say if you're for a free market, you hate poor people. Well, think about this. Would there not be charities? Would there not be generous people who are willing to offer services for a lower cost? Well, yeah, there would be. Because this is not the turn of the century anymore. This is not, the turn of the last century. This is not the 1910s anymore, where there's horrible government corruption, there's horrible bureaucracy, there's horrible situations where people aren't getting their adequate needs because of government corruption. That was what led to the crash, was government corruption, was crony capitalism. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a free market solution. We're talking about local economy, a very warm, very open local economy. Local economy is sort of the open source solution to the proprietary economy, which is what we have now in America. We don't really have a free market.
This is a mob mode. This is the mob mode. What kind of fool do you think I am? You think I know nothing about my...
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Surgery does not have to be financially painful. Hi, I'm surgical doctor David Red, and I'd like to invite you to my walk-in surgery clinic in North Shore. QuickSurge brings you immediate relief from moles, skin tags, maybe a laceration. QuickSurge. You walk in, fill out a mini form, I numb the area I'll treat, and before you know it, you're on your way home. Do I take insurance? No, because I take cash customers. I have super low and fixed prices, credit card, check, or cash. Uninsured, member of the working financially disadvantaged, choose QuickSurge. I publish prices online. No murk, just sunshine. Hassle-free, pain-free. Love the idea of a personal relationship with a doctor? Drop in with a nasty cut from work. QuickSurge, I'll take care of you. QuickSurge is a public center on the North Shore. No insurance hassles with QuickSurge. The national medical system is dysfunctional, overpriced, very alienating. I'm part of the solution, and so are you. Come on home. QuickSurge.com. QuickSurg. Relief.
When my brother and I opened the first Jets Pizza, we believed if we made the best pizza, customers would find us. So we made fresh dough each day, used fresh toppings, and premium mozzarella cheese. 300 plus stores later, we still do.
Try Jet's famous 8-corner pizza with premium mozzarella cheese and one topping, now just $11.99 for a limited time only. Jet's Pizza, the best pizza in town. 3600 Hicks and Pike.
Life is short. Eat better pizza.
Let's get Jets.
You do not have to be living with constant pain. You need to make the choice today to enjoy a revitalized body. You deserve to live a better